This year's NBA offseason has been insane. From Chris Paul being traded to the Houston Rockets, to Jimmy Butler being traded to Minnesota to join their team, to trust the process, finally, well, not finally, but getting the first round pick Marquise Fultz. And now we have another blockbuster trade. Paul George to the Oklahoma City Thunder in exchange for Victor Oladipo and Domantas Sabonis. So I'm just gonna just give my thoughts on the trade and give my reasons as to why each team would do it. So let's start with Oklahoma City. I speak way too fast. My brain is thinking way too much, and I just say everything. Sorry about that. Well, if you're a long-time subscriber, you know that's my style. I just talk too much, or talk too fast. Slow down. So the Thunder traded Victor Oladipo, who's averaging pretty solid numbers last year. I can't remember the exact numbers. I think they were like 16 points per game, 4.3 rebounds, and he was doing a decent job. He was very solid. And Domantas Sabonis, who was the draft pick they got in the trade. Essentially, both of these guys were guys they got in the trade with Serge Ibaka. And Sabonis, who was the draft pick, they got the first round draft pick. I forgot what overall. I think he was 11th overall. I wasn't sure, but I mean, yeah, we all know last year's draft was kind of weak. I mean, to be fair, the first overall pick didn't play a single game this year. Yeah. That sucks. But the Thunder got one of the best two-way players in the league, Paul George. So, let's go over why they did this. The reason they got George was because they need someone to... They need to prove to Russell Westbrook that they're going to be able to build around him. Because Westbrook didn't sign a long-term deal yet. He's a free agent next year. Not this year, next year. 2018. Yeah, 2018 free agency. So the Thunder need to prove they can build around Westbrook, and he's giving them some time. It's like, I'm gonna give you some time to build around me, and then if you guys fail horribly, I'll scram, because I'm not wasting my MVP years. Congrats to all Westbrook and Thunder fans on this team if they can't do anything. And this is a great move. Why? Well, the Thunder didn't really give up anything too big. They didn't give up a first-round pick. They didn't give up Enes Kanter. They didn't give up Steven Adams or even Russell Westbrook. People were at first people were reacting before they saw the deals before they saw the terms of the trade. People were like, "Oh dear, did we give up Westbrook for George?" And they're and Thunder fans were so happy. I follow a good bit of Thunder fans. They were so happy when it was revealed we got George for not giving up that much. Yeah, but Oladipo, I'll get into it later. I'm going on a tangent. Oladipo and Sabonis aren't that bad. What did the Thunder give up in Oladipo? Oladipo's a very solid player, but the reason that he didn't work with Westbrook is he is the same type of player as Westbrook. Ball dominant. He wants the ball in his hands, and he wants to dribble it. He wants to ISO. He wants to control the offense, basically. He's the alpha dog of a team. Or he wants to be the alpha dog of a team. Now, Oladipo is a very solid choice, but we all know Westbrook, much better than Oladipo is. But trading away Oladipo, yeah, you do lose Oladipo, but at the same time, George is actually making less than Victor Oladipo is. So even though Paul George, his contract is only for 1 year, he was making less than Oladipo. Oladipo's contract isn't expiring next year. So if George leaves, they can make a run at someone like DeMarcus Cousins and who knows, LeBron James to OKC. That would be interesting. Although we all know the West is stacked. Honestly, the West is just stacked. I think honestly, if you look at the Western teams, I'm being honest. I think we might have a scenario. Remember a few years ago when the Suns missed the playoffs with a 47-win team or 49-win team? I don't even know. It was close to 50 though. And then the East, you had a team, and if the Suns were in the East that year, they would have been the 4 seed. Insane. I think we might have a year like that this year. I think the West is going to dominate the East. Of course, I think the Cavaliers will still be great, but I think the West this year is going to be very stacked, especially with teams like the Rockets, the Thunder, of course. Golden State's gonna be the Kings. Not the Kings. The Girls League are gonna be the defending champions. The Kings, I don't think the Kings aren't gonna be there right yet, but hey, they're working there. So, awkward silence. That's why they are going to try and get a free agent if George leaves, or who knows, they maybe can convince him to stay. And it would suck if Westbrook leaves, but there's a good chance that if they are able to convince George and Westbrook to stay, they could also maybe sign somebody decent. I think right now their biggest need is a bench player, a very strong bench player. I'm not talking about strong physically. I mean a very good bench player, like Andre Iguodala type player, a player who's on the bench who can score. Because yeah, Westbrook and George are going to be on the field. Are on the court a lot, but they can't be on the court every minute. They can't be on the court every single minute. And there could be great coaching if they could figure out a way to get him on the court, to get Westbrook on the court, have him with George, take Westbrook out, have George still in. Then when George comes out, Westbrook comes in, and they play. And they've all basically they don't go a single minute in the game without one of those guys on the court. But it makes sense for them to get a good bench scorer, because you need to have depth on your team. And their offense, actually, apart from Westbrook, no one else could score. Another thing, George fits Westbrook's style. He fits with Westbrook perfectly. He can play with almost anyone. Great defensive player, perfect for guarding KD or LeBron or Kawhi, or insert any other great small forward in the league. Who I can't remember right now, or Carmelo. People are gonna hate me for saying Carmelo. Still elite, but George also brings a great offensive game, and he will definitely help out Westbrook, especially spotting up from three. Now, enough about the Thunder. We all know the Thunder, they got a good deal on this trade. What about the team trading Paul George, the Indiana Pacers? And boy, the Pacers, woo, they are getting creamed by fans. Fans are saying they got nothing for George. I disagree with that. And my reasoning for that, I actually originally thought that they got fleeced, and I looked at the details more. I'm like, never mind, they didn't get fleeced. But they could have gotten more for George. They certainly could have tried to add in maybe a first-round pick in there. I think would have made the deal a little bit more even. And I mean, like a non-protected first-round pick. I mean, a first-round pick. I thought the Thunder were going to be bad next year, but still, first-round picks, good. But what did they get in this trade? It's not like they just got two old guys. Oladipo is very young, and I mean very young. Oladipo is in his 4th or 5th year coming to the league next year, I believe. Yeah, next year will be his 5th year in the league. And he's already shown lots of promise, and he's already been a pretty solid player. He's averaging around 15. I think his career he's averaged around 17 points a game. He's shown that if you put him, we all know the Magic were a mess. The Magic, Orlando Magic, their management is terrible. Really extremely terrible. So we all know Oladipo probably could have done better had he had some good management. So if the Pacers do this management thing right, which I'm really starting to see a pattern here, good management plus good players equals success. So if they can manage properly, I think Oladipo can be a 20-point per game guy who also gets around 4 rebounds and 4 assists a game on decent shooting. They also got Domantas Sabonis. Jeez. Sabonis is a sophomore. Not a sophomore, but he's coming into the 2nd year in the league. And a lot of young players tend to struggle in their first year. Even like high overall picks tend to struggle in their first year. They don't do that well. So I think we'll see more. If Sabonis gets a little bit more playing time, with George gone, who's your small forward? I don't know. Sabonis is going to get a decent amount of playing time. I think if the management develops him properly, he can be a solid player for the Pacers. So they have 2 pros. They got 2 solid young players who could develop into something for them. Plus Miles Turner. And next year you're probably not going to be the greatest team. You're going to have a high draft pick, draft someone good. People will be looking at the Pacers and be like, okay, maybe they weren't maybe this wasn't the worst thing. I know a lot of people are going to say they should have gotten Kevin Love. Kevin Love is 28 years old. Paul George is 27. K-Love is in his prime. The Pacers are not in a position to win with one good player in his prime. They are in a position for a rebuild. Because if George stays there, say George signed a contract extension for some unknown reason, stays there 27, and then 34 years old, and the Pacers have barely had any success. Yeah, terrible. Now, if they got Kevin Love, they could always trade Kevin Love. Well, why not trade George? George is worth more, as well as trading George for Love. That's just you have to trading someone to trade someone again. Just trade George straight up. It's like trading George for someone to trade for. It's just too redundant. And again, of course, Kevin Love is too old. Well, he's not old, but he's in his prime. He's not a young player like Oladipo. Oladipo is in his young 20s, in his early 20s. I don't know how old Sabonis is, but he's a second year in the league. He's not. He's probably. I think he's 20. I'm not sure. I can't remember how old he is, but he's either in his late teens or early 20s. Obviously, both of those guys are not worth more than K Love is, but they're definitely players that are going to help rebuild this team more than Kevin Love would. I mean, yeah, it'd be like when Kevin Love was on the Timberwolves, just great player doing everything and no one else to help him, waste his prime years. So yeah, I think they could have gotten more out of this trade, but I'm not saying they didn't get, like, they did get two solid pieces. If they handle this right, and that's the key word, and that's the key thing in sports, if their management handles this right, if their general manager and coach handle this right, Oladipo can become a very solid player, a very good player. Sabonis can become something decent. May not be like a starter, but he may be a good bench player. Who knows? He might turn into like an Andre Iguodala. What Andre Iguodala has been for the Warriors. I don't know if he'll be that good, but I'm just comparing him to random names. Maybe he might be a good, very solid bench player, a very good role player. That's also something teams need. Look at the Warriors. They have 3 superstars on offense who start, and then even when those 3 guys aren't on the court, Iguodala's on the bench. He comes in. You have another very good scorer. So that's what I think. That's what I think the Pacers are doing. Overall, I like to trade for the Thunder more, but I don't think the Pacers are, like, I mean, yeah, let's be honest. If you trade away your superstar, there's a good chance you're probably losing the trade. And I think, yeah, I mean, well, except for the Clippers, they got a lot for Chris Paul. But this offseason's been crazy so far. If any other big news happens, and I think some big stuff might happen, I'll try to cover it. You know, summer, I got some free time, but editing does take time, and there's a lot of things I have to do this summer. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. What are your opinions on the Paul George to the Oklahoma City Thunder trade? And who do you think won the trade? And give me a reason why. I mean, I know people are everyone's gonna say OKC, but if someone thinks of Indiana, give me a good reason why. And do you think Indiana, like, if you think Indiana lost the trade, tell me why. Tell me, like, what your opinion is on the trade. Yeah, just tell me whatever you want. I don't really care. Don't tell me random stuff like your address or something. No.